Welcome, everybody. Hi, everybody. Okay, so remember to choose your language. And, we had an interesting meeting last night, and I wanted to just be able to, spend time at our SDP Connects between now and into the next few months as the self-determination program begins. So each SDP Connect, we're going to have a theme that we want to talk about, but I also think it's important to try to get questions answered. So what we're going to try to do over the next few SDP Connects is we're going to open up with anybody asking any burning questions or sharing any burning information for the first half hour. Then we'll go into our discussion with our speakers and everything. So I wanted to, first of all, welcome everybody, because I'm seeing some new people here that I've never met before. So let me introduce myself. My name is Judy Mark. I'm the president of Disability Voices United, which is an organization directed by and for people with developmental disabilities. We were founded by the individuals who passed the self-determination law many, many years ago, and have been very involved in being part of the implementation of the program. And we are really excited to be entering this new era of hold on a second. I'm so sorry. People are texting me for the password. Ed, is the password 123456 for this?
Yes, it should be.
Thank you. Okay, good. I'm not sure why they need that, but that's fine. Okay. Okay, so we are very excited because self-determination is going to be offered to everyone in the program, everyone in the state within the next few weeks. And we are looking forward to having all of you join us. I personally have a 24-year-old son in the self-determination program who is moving into his second year in a couple of weeks on June 1st. So we're currently transitioning to the second year, which I know for a lot of people, it has been a little bit of a challenge, but I can't tell you my challenge yet because I still need to submit our revised spending plan, but hopefully there will be no challenges there. We are also very excited because this week, the state of California, or the governor, is presenting his revised budget for the state, which is going to include a plan to roll out the self-determination program statewide. And this plan, we don't know what's in the plan. We're going to know on Friday. And in fact, probably our next SDP Connect will talk about it. But as soon as we know, we'll get out information to all of you through our mailing list. By the way, if you're not on the DVU mailing list, we encourage you to do so. I'm going to ask Ed to just throw in when she has a chance. She already has done it. You'll see in the chat, this is how you get on the DVU mailing list if you're not already on our mailing list. That way you'll get this information as it becomes available. So as I was saying, I would really like to spend for at least the next couple of months, the first half hour of every one of our SDP Connects, I would like to spend just answering people's questions. I don't always have to be the one to answer the question, by the way. It can be others of you who are experts making suggestions. We have muted everybody, and the reason why we muted you is for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have a Spanish interpreter, and to remind everybody to please choose a language. And it is very hard when there's external noise or more than one microphone is on at a time for the interpreter to do her job. Secondly, we do this to prevent Zoom bombers. of which there have been Zoom bombers at a number of, not us, thank goodness, but at a number of self-determination meetings at regional centers. There have been Zoom bombers, and we keep everyone muted so that nobody has that opportunity to take over our meeting. That doesn't mean we won't give you all chances to speak. And the way you'll get a chance to speak is by raising your hand. And you do that by going down to the bottom of your screen, clicking on reactions and clicking raise hand. You'll see I have a hand raised up here, and then we can lower your hand when you're, we will ask you to unmute at that time, okay? So at this time, before we move forward with our theme for the week, which is the truth about the self-determination program, both good and bad, we're gonna just open it up to any questions that anybody may have right now. So feel free to raise your hand at this time. It can be the most simple question, like, we don't even know how a budget is created, to a really technical question about COVID hours, about any kind of complicated things about spending plans. Is this something that should be able to go into a spending plan? So we're open to anybody. I'm seeing no questions. So maybe people either know everything or don't know enough yet to ask a question. So yay, we have one question. All right, so Miriam, go ahead and ask your question.
I don't know if it's a question. I have two things I want to say. I had exercise equipment on my son's spending plan, and it was not approved. I got a phone call today from the person, I don't know, the head of the self-determination program at North LA. And she said she knows other regional centers have approved it. North LA has not. She called it a duplicate service because they already pay for a gym membership. I explained that it's not a duplicate service, it's a choice. You know, he can't go to the gym every day. She said it would not apply to the final rule. She was super nice about it, and she said she would send me a notice of action, and then I could, go to court with that, which I will do because I don't think it's right. That's one thing I wanted to say. And then the other thing that I've had trouble with is how the FMS can pay for services and goods.
Mm-hmm.
Like Costco, they can't buy anything at Costco. They cannot order it online. They are not allowed to give you a gift card from Costco. So I'm forced to buy more expensive stuff. And there's so many other things. Like if I see like a deal or a coupon on Target, I can't go to the FMS because it will take them too long. And I don't know. I just think that this really needs a solution. I do not understand for the life of me why I cannot be reimbursed for things that are on the spending plan and that I have money for in the budget. I do not understand.
I agree. Those are, so what I'm going to ask now, if there is any other family members or folks who have dealt with this, please place something in the chat and I'll call on you. If you'd like to, you could either put it in writing in the chat or you can just put something in the chat for me to call on you, because I don't want it to always be me providing a response, because there's so many of you who have incredible knowledge, some of which I've never heard about. So please feel free. But here's what I can tell. Let's start with the first issue first. The first issue is the spending plan. I'm sorry, the exercise equipment. So first of all, to say that it is not HCBS final rule compliant, remember that all services must be fully integrated in the community. That is absurd that they said that it is not compliant. Things that are not compliant are things that are in segregated communities that are only for people with developmental disabilities who receive regional center services. How could you say your home is that same environment? So that's bizarre. So I want to see that piece in writing, and I would love for you to send it to me, because that's absurd. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, that they're saying it's duplicative services. There is nothing in the statute and nothing in what DDS has directed to regional centers that says that you can't have more than one service that does the same thing. That happens all the time in the traditional system, where you have multiple sources working on behavior, multiple sources working on fixing people. So it's like, that's kind of like absurd. And so, as long as you are not asking for additional monies in your overall budget, and as long as you're staying within your budget, I don't even understand how they can make that argument. So, I would love to see that letter, and I hope you demand your denial letter as soon as possible.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so now moving on. So before I move to the FMS issue, does anybody want to sort of respond to that first piece about duplicative service or Christina, do you? Excellent.
I would just like to say, so I'm a member of the North Los Angeles Area Regional Center Self-Determination Local Advisory Committee. So Miriam, I would highly encourage you to come to our meeting. It's a third Thursday of this month. And please present this exact issue that you're bringing up, because we're realizing that not everybody within the self-determination team is aware of what is happening and the barriers that consumers and families are facing. So if it's presented, it will be addressed. It will get to the heads of the people that will make sure that it was addressed properly, and may save you from having to go through the fair hearing process, which that's the last thing that we would want anybody to do. So if it's unfortunate that they continue to say no, but if you haven't done that yet, if you could please come to our meeting and present this exact situation, because I think you said it, you were at North Los Angeles.
Yes.
We need to hear about this and to help you
to the meeting. But the phone call came from Sylvia Haro. I mean, she's the highest up. She was super nice about it, but she denied it, even though I kept explaining it. And she said, yes, why don't you go to a hearing, fair hearing, and, maybe this way. I mean, I'm not crazy about it. I've never done it. It'll, get me all nervous and excited, but if I have to, I will do it.
Yeah, Sylvia has been, very supportive, and I know sometimes her hands are tied, but I think it's important that Dr. Jesse Weller is aware of this as well, and he's in all of our meetings, and he's been really very, very supportive in trying to resolve issues at North Los Angeles with SDP. So, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up.
The other thing that I really want to point out to everybody is that there is nothing in the law, the self-determination law, or the directions that have been sent to regional centers that says that regional centers approve or disapprove spending plans. There's nothing in there that says that. And I don't know how we moved from what the law says to what is currently standard practice at regional centers, which is give me your spending plan, we'll let you know if we approve it or not. That is the opposite of self-determination, everyone. And so one of the things that's really important for DBU, and for those of you who are at our conference, I think I said it like 20 times, is they do not have spending plan approval. They just don't. And we have to insist on our authority. One of the principles of self-determination is having the authority to spend a certain budget in a way that we want it to be spent, right? So we have to push back every time this has been said. This is being said to us every single time. Now, let me try to address the second question, which is, why is it that we as family members or individuals can't spend money and they get reimbursed? And then as a piece of that, why do some FMSs say we will buy from Amazon, but we will not buy from Costco? We are seeing this as a systemic problem across the board. And the reimbursement piece, we know that there's one FMS that's willing to do it and the others are not. And so clearly, if one is willing to do it, that means it's not against the rules. It's just the FMSs are not willing to do it. So I think it would be a good idea. I actually have a good relationship with the FMSs. I think it would be a good idea for us to get some of the FMSs onto one of our SDP Connects and try to work through this issue to figure out, because they're all amazing folks. All of the FMSs really believe in self-determination. It's just, you know, each one of them have their own way of doing things, right? And so they are open to our advocacy with them, which I think we should be doing, and we should be sitting down with them as equals and say, what do you think of allowing us to, you know, to be able to make these expenditures? The quirky thing about not like pay, you know, only going for certain places, you know, and not paying for Costco, maybe it's because they don't have a Costco membership. If it were me, I would put a Costco membership in your spending plan. Put that Costco membership in your spending plan, and now they have a way, because they have your membership number, to pay for things.
And they say actually it's Costco is a problem. They have tried to order from Costco, but Costco returns the payment. So there's a problem with Costco doing it. But it's not just Costco. So I ordered several items from Amazon through them. They ordered it for me, but 3 of the items broke right away. So I have to go through the FMS to return the items, which I understand is absolutely super annoying.
Yeah.
But I can't do it myself. I called Amazon twice. The account needs to be not approved. You know, they need to confirm the account. So it has to go back to the FMS, and they have to do it for small items.
It's absurd. That's absurd. Yeah. And one of the ways that we can move past this is for FMSs to have like debit cards with only a certain amount put on it, because obviously it can't be credit cards, because then you could spend unlimited amounts of money. But a debit card which says, okay, your item is going to cost $49. We will put $49 on this debit card, and you can use it, but that's all you're going to be able to use it for. And therefore, it's coming out of your Amazon account or your Costco account. I mean, to me, this is, I think I see a solution so easily. And I'm just, you know, maybe if there's an FMS on this, I know I saw a GT person come in, and maybe they can explain it, or maybe they're helping people with this. I don't know. But there may be complicated processes on the FMS's side that makes this very difficult for them. Okay, let's work together to break down those barriers. Let's figure out how we can streamline this, right? So let's do it together, because I think I want us to be allies with the FMSs as opposed to seeing them. I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook group that's run by the state council. I've seen a lot of people like putting out some negative vibes about FMSs, and I'm really trying to push back on that, because I think we need to see our FMSs as our allies on this. We have got to make them work for us, or else this program is not going to work. I feel the same way about independent facilitators. There are some good ones, there are some not as good ones, but let's empower all of them, because the self-determination program is not going to work if we don't have great independent facilitators. Not all of them are experienced, but let's give them more experience. So it's like, let's all work together, to make this program successful. And I think that we'll be able to succeed. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to Margaret Fritz. Oops, I might have accidentally muted you. Accidentally. Margaret, are you able to unmute? There we go.
Unrelated to what you've been talking about, but my son has been approved for self-determination for a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess now. And my concern is, and I'm asking for advice, he's so used to pleasing his mother and doing whatever his mother wants, that when we've asked him questions and tried to get him to tell us what he really wants, he looks to me to give the answer. He doesn't even know what he really wants anymore, I don't think, because he can't imagine a future without living with mommy.
I have a son exactly the same, Margaret. And I think, my son did ABA therapy for a lot of years and it saved him. It absolutely saved him. I am a fan, but at a certain point, you get over the line with ABA therapy and it all becomes about compliance and saying yes. And so my son whenever I ask him things, he's always looking for what does mommy want me to say? Like, what is the right answer here? And so, it's really, really important that you get a good independent facilitator who understands how to flush out what people really want. We had, for my son's person-centered plan, we had the best. We had Sally Burton Hoyle, like the best in the country from Michigan. And she's so amazing at figuring out, listening to folks, listening to what people need. There are, by the way, great people in California who can do that as well. My son had his person-centered plan very early on when there weren't as many independent facilitators. So, you need to have a good person who sits down with your son. I don't know if he's able to, if he'd be willing to communicate. How does he communicate, Margaret?
He's very bright.
And so he's verbal?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
too verbal.
Okay. That doesn't always mean they're saying everything that they mean.
Right.
My son can speak too, but it's very difficult to have him say what's going on in his head. And he has a lot going on in his head, not all things that you need to hear about, by the way. So I understand that. So I think it's really important that you find someone who maybe is willing to sit with him, gains his trust over a few meetings, and then is willing to sit with him alone without you to sit and brainstorm with him about his future. And if they're with him without you in the room, you will be surprised at what comes out.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, it's a little bit harder when somebody doesn't have a communication system. I mean, that's a little bit harder to get them to understand, which is why, of course, we also have a project at DVU about communication access and making sure that people do have a way to communicate. But the fact that he can communicate, having him away from mom and having him brainstorm and then coming together with you, because really, you need to be part of his circle of support because he may come up with, ideas that maybe not great for his health and safety or whatever. Like, I want to go to Disneyland every single day of the year, or McDonald's 3 meals a day, or I'm not sure that your son would say that. My son would, but it's what there needs to obviously be some advice that can be offered by his circle of support, of which I'm sure you're right there at the top of that circle. So not that a circle has a top, but the lead part of the circle. So yeah, I hope that helps. And finding a really good facilitator is critically important.
Judy, before we move on, may I plug one of the resources that we have that might help? Margaret, I've popped in the chat a link to our supported decision-making page on our website. We'll soon have an interchange, like a whole separate website for supported decision-making. And we've written a handbook. Myself, my colleague Suzanne, our fabulous fellow Ishita Tripathi, and myself all wrote this, and Judy all wrote the supported decision-making handbook, and it talks about building the capacity to make choices, because none of us are born with that, regardless of whether we are neurotypical or neurodivergent. We all build the capacity to make choices over a lifetime, and our SDM handbook is for parents of people with developmental disabilities. And it talks about how you can start building that capacity now. Of course, it's always, it's best to start when folks are young, but sometimes that doesn't happen, right? And so it's the next best time to start is now. And I really think that can be a great resource for you. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you, Judy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an amazing handbook. Highly recommend to all. You can find it on our website, and Ed's going to put the link in, or you maybe already have put in the link.
Already in it.
Okay, great. Okay, we're moving on to Moon Song.
Thank you for the meeting, and it is a very grateful resource to be in this meeting. And I have a son who's a consumer of Regional Center of Orange County. And we have been very excited about this program, self-determination program, and we've been waiting to be enrolled. And we were in the lottery, but has not been picked. So we are waiting for the rollout. And we have a personal center plan already in line, and we want to move forward. But here's a question. Our regional center is not sure it's going to happen. So what? Okay, I need to.
Place right now. Which regional
Yes.
center? Which regional center?
Regional Center of Orange County. So my
We're
service
that one.
coordinator saying that, okay, we need to hear from DDS that it's moving forward, because right now we can move forward right now. So I need your help. So what kind of literatures or letters or what documents do I need to forward it to them that this is going to happen?
Specifically, what they said, Judy, was they were waiting for
Yeah.
direction from DDS
Yes.
on what they would do, how they are supposed to move forward and when they are supposed to move forward. And honestly, I have clients at multiple regional centers. I can't even get initial meetings. My whole thought was, let's get the initial meeting, let's get the budget certified, and then we can just sit back and relax till July 1st. And it's not happening anyplace.
So life will change on Friday, maybe Monday, because DDS, the governor, is releasing a plan to implement the program statewide starting July 1st. Doesn't mean you can't get started beforehand, but they're going to be very specific with regional centers on what they should be doing. As I said at the beginning, I don't know exactly what's in that plan. It is going to remain secret until the whole governor's budget is mostly secret until he formally releases it on Friday. So I can tell you I've been in focus groups with DDS about this plan and feel very confident that they've heard us. They've heard our concerns, and they are going to respond with a plan that I hope will be very effective. So what we're going to do as soon as we see this plan at DBU is that we're going to put it into plain language, although it might be in plain language, but in case it's not, we will write it in a way that people understand it, and we will get it out to everyone immediately. And we will send you a link to the original plan from the governor. Now, here's the thing that you should know. There's going to be two parts of this plan. There's going to be the plan, the actual plan, which doesn't need approval from anybody. And then there's going to be money that they want to attach to the plan, which does need to be approved by the legislature. So the pieces of the plan that don't require additional monies go into effect like now. Like you can show them, this is the plan, you need to do it. The pieces that require money, like hopefully we'll get that additional person-centered planning money, which is people often call 024 monies or 024 monies, which is up to $2,500 for people to spend going into the program. Hopefully that'll be in there. We'll know on Friday. That's not going to be able to go into effect until the budget goes into effect, right? Which is in July. And the legislature has to approve it. But we will, but the other pieces of the plan, they're law basically. And so we will get that information out. I really need to, I used to come to the RCOC advisory committee meetings all the time because my dear friends are on that committee, and then I kind of stopped. So, do any of you guys, Sandra or Moon, do you guys know when the next meeting is? Because I'll try to be there.
Oh, I have not seen it posted. I've been watching,
It's
because the
usually
last meeting was
Monday.
in March.
Yeah.
The last meeting, they said they would get together and figure out what was a good date for everyone. Let me go on their website right now and see if it's
Mhm.
posted.
Yeah, go ahead and
Because
post it in the chat.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. But everybody, it's happening, everybody. Do not let regional centers tell you that self-determination is not happening. It is absolutely happening. Okay, thanks, Moon, for that depressing news. Christina, did you have an additional question or were you just raising your hand? Okay, go ahead.
I did, thank you. So real quick, I just want to respond, one response with what Miriam and you were talking about with the debit cards. I've heard from consumers and families too, that it limits their ability to be out in the community. For example, there was one SDP participant that is an artist, and he would go to Michael's. He loved to go to Michael's and purchase all of his supplies, his art supplies. If he can't do that because the FMS has to purchase it. So if there's a way, you know, where it's actually doing the opposite of what we want for SDP by limiting consumers to be out engaging in our community when we're not able to have that flexibility. So debit card, you know, gift cards for any FMSs out there, please think of how we can do that. Also, I thought of CalAble, that, you know, a CalAble account has a debit card attached to it. So there may be something, you know, they may have to set up an account for each person, but have a debit card attached in that realm. Something,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a thought. My question is for you is, so my son Johnny has been receiving ABA through, and is paid for through the regional center now, not through Medi-Cal. And I'm not sure exactly why, but that's how it's been paid for. So when we're moving the money into the budget, that money will then go into the budget, but will they have us try to get it, because it could technically be a generic resource? Are they going to have us apply for through Medi-Cal, or how does that work if you know, something was being paid by regional center, but it could be generic resource moving forward, or does that just automatically go into the budget? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, so they were paying for something through the waiver that could be a generic resource.
Well, yeah, Johnny's on the HCBA waiver.
Right.
So regional center, some ABA therapy is paid for by some consumers' insurance will pay for ABA therapy through their health insurance. But for some reason, Johnny's wasn't approved. And so regional center has been paying for his ABA therapy.
Right.
And not, it doesn't, HCBA waiver wouldn't pay for that.
Well, I can tell you that for other consumers on ABA therapy, that's just gone right into their budget. If it was considered, if the generic resource couldn't be accessed in the traditional system, then it goes into your budget for sure in self-determination. We've seen that. It's one of the reasons why some children, particularly those without autism, have very robust budgets. And other children with autism who are required to use ABA through their insurance have very, very small budgets. So there's been this huge sort of disparity between children with autism and children with other disabilities who may have access to ABA therapy. To me, it's very problematic. I'm actually really concerned about how this is in many ways discriminating against children with autism. But I don't know what to do about it, but I'm concerned. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
Miriam, did you have another question? Oh, I accidentally put down your hand, but let me unmute you.
Were you talking to me? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I lost. Okay, I'm sorry.
Your hand was up. Did you have another question?
I just wanted to say something positive that Sylvia said today that applies to everyone who's in self-determination right now. She said she talked to DDS about the next budgets, the second year budgets. And she said they will not take away money for the second year. I don't know what that means, but she said because of COVID and because of the regional center dragged their feet in so many ways, people couldn't spend their money. They wouldn't take it away. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. that's good.
So you don't have to go out and spend your money senselessly, just so
Right.
that's basically,
Yes. If you're entering your second year, please don't go on a spending spree to
Yeah,
spend on your
exactly.
budget. There's lots of stuff my son didn't spend money on in his first year.
yes.
And I was promised that he would have at least the same budget from year one, because we couldn't do most of the things that were.
And not only because of COVID, also because the regional centers took forever to, I mean, I'm waiting for a change to be approved. It's been 3 months now, just
Yeah.
for a change in the spending plan.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to put that out there, take some anxiety away.
right, absolutely. There's been a couple of messages, questions in the chat that I wanted to get into. Jinsuk, you were asking a couple questions, which I know you emailed me, and I apologize, it's just been so swamped. She asked, our newly started, their organization called Being Built Together has a self-determination independent facilitator team, and the team members work all together to provide the best self-determination outcome for the families. However, recently I've heard that we need to become a vendor of regional centers to get the $2,500 for the PCP from DDS, because we are an organization, not an individual. Do you think that is correct? Does any organization which provides PCP services to families need to become a vendor of regional centers to get $2,500 from DDS? Well, first, let me say, you're not getting the $2,500 from DDS. You're getting the $2,500 from the regional center. So that is an issue. I do not know. Sandra, you have a small company. I know it's just a couple of you. Have you been required, because there's more than one of you, to become a vendor, or are you getting paid just you to Sandra and you know, to your colleague?
So I've worked with 14 regional centers.
God bless you.
And I've refused to work with Alta because they told me I had to be rendered and referred by a service coordinator and approved before I even start working with anyone. And oh no, they're, you know, all the nightmare things that Sacramento's hearing, I think they're hearing from their regional center in their backyard. They, and if you look at today's report that shows how many people are in the self-determination program from them, there's nobody even with a approved spending plan. So I felt like those consumers would be better served by somebody who'd actually worked with that regional center before and knew how to navigate them. So I referred them to somebody else. Mm-hmm. But yes, that regional center said that. I have heard that the Fresno Regional Center, and I don't know what the name of that regional center is. Central Valley, yes. That one, I've heard that one has said the same thing. Other regional centers, I have had to be vendored. I'm in the e-billing nightmare, but it's not a big deal. It's just I fill out the paperwork and, you know, and I did have to get vendored at my home regional center, and now I'm courtesy vendored everywhere else. But they don't have any other way to pay us. And, you know, the one thing Regional Center of Orange County is doing right is they're just assigning it to GT Independence. That's the only regional center I get paid for in a timely manner. I've been waiting 7 months for one. And yeah, 7 months. I started emailing them every day. It's like squeaky wheel time, people.
That's outrageous. That's outrageous. So let me tell you what the directive says. It says that people who provide person-centered planning do not need to be vendors. There's nothing in the directive that says that's different for organizations. Doesn't say that organizations have to be vendored, but individuals don't. This is one of these examples of them making up rules. Okay, they are just making up these rules just because they are used to bureaucratic rules. Some of this is not like these sinister ideas, because remember that all these vendorship things are not coming from service coordinators. They're not, or even the executive director has nothing to do with this. This is coming from the billing department. The billing department makes these decisions. They are not part of any meetings. They don't even know the principles of the self-determination program. They don't understand responsibility, authority, freedom, those kinds of things. So this is where DDS really needs to get involved, and I wish they would. They don't usually get involved. So I would say it's not correct. You had a second question. If your organization provides direct services to families, for example, a socialization program, do you think there might be any conflict of interest with the SDP? I mean, if a family chooses the socialization program through the SDP, yes, there would be, if you're going to be their independent facilitator. So if you're going to be the independent facilitator for that client, you cannot also be providing them other services paid for through the self-determination program. So that's a very important, big wall that you have to set up. I hope that helped. I hope that helped, Jinsuk. I know that there was another question in the chat. I feel like, hold on, let me keep looking. Okay, hold on. Okay, maybe not. Maybe there isn't. We found the date for the Orange County Regional Center. It's going to be May 24th at 6:30. Oh, I know. I knew there was another question. Tommy was asking, can insurance co-pays be covered in the SDP budgets? No, but they can continue to be covered outside of the budget. I'd love other people to verify that with me, because I actually don't know anybody that this is happening with, but this is what DDS says. Does anybody have any better information on that issue? Sandra, I haven't seen that. Oh, Talene is also here. From Guideline
I
Group.
do have a couple of clients who the co-pays are being paid outside of the budget. That is correct, at 2 different regional centers.
So that is the correct way to do it. I know I remember speaking to DDS about this issue, and that is the way it's supposed to happen. Hearing the regional centers are saying DDS hasn't confirmed SDP to be rolled out. Yes, it's very frustrating. Okay. Yeah, one of the things that's in the chat, Christina put this, the latest numbers and the latest, did you put the numbers too, or just the newsletter? The latest numbers came out today from DDS, and they are dismally bad. I think that they added, like, in a month another 20 people. I have to go back and look at the March numbers. But here's the March numbers. So March there was 524, and I believe today they came up with 555, right? Was that the total number in? Hold on, let me look. So here it is, 556. So that means that they added 26 people, 23 people. I can subtract. 22 people, 20, 50, 32 people. I got the math in my head. That's not a lot of people in a month. We are still at, we're just at a quarter of the people who were originally selected. So that's pretty bad. The good news is I feel proud to announce that South Central, is it South Central? Yes, South Central's Regional Center is on the books for more than 10 people. So they're over an asterisk, but we still have Alta California Regional Center, which was just mentioned, still under 10 people out of the total selected 268, less than 10 people, because it just has an asterisk. We still have far northern, is that farther northern? I think it's Golden Gate Regional Center. Here, I'll share it so that you guys can all see it. Hold on, let me make sure I have the right one up. I'll share it so that you guys can see it. April, there it is. Can you guys see this little document here? Is that what you're seeing? I'm looking at Talene. Talene, can you see it okay? Okay.
Yep.
So you'll see, I know it's a lot of numbers, but you'll see here that when you see that little asterisk at the end, it means that it's less than 10 people. Less than 10 people have gone into the program. And for Alta Regional Center, which is one of the biggest regional centers in the state, For them to have less than 10 people is a downright shame. It's just kind of embarrassing. You'll also see that Golden Gate Regional Center, which I know has a robust coaching program. I don't know, NeuroNav is part of that. I don't know if they're here on our call, but I'd love to know what's going on there. North Bay Regional Center. I don't know if anybody's from that regional center on this call. And we just, Tri-Counties just got above, we're just at 10. You know, these numbers are just super pathetic. Even my own regional center is super pathetic. 22 out of 84 selected have gone in. So almost, I would say that some of the better regional centers are some of the, are still mediocre. Nobody's doing well. So if you, by the way, hold on, I just need to do something. One of the, if you don't get this email, what you do is you email, hold on, I just need to make Ed host because she dropped for a second. All right, go ahead. If you're not on the mailing list, you email, and I'll put it in the chat real quick. You email SDP at, not sub, SDP at dds.ca.gov. That's the email address you send and ask to be placed on the mailing list. So you'll get the newsletter directly emailed to you once a month, as well as this data. Okay, we have a question from Gladys. Go ahead, Gladys.
Yes, hi, Judy. I put it on the chat, but I think it got overseen, right, with all these comments, but I'm not sure if you guys have discussed this in previous meetings. I just wanted to confirm if you guys have gotten information from DDS stating that it's okay for parents to go do the orientations at other regional centers, because some regional centers, as of right now, they are announcing that they are not accepting the orientations from other regional centers. So I just wanted to confirm that.
I have not gotten that answer. Has anybody gotten that answer from DDS? Because it is actually on my to-do list to ask them whether DVU can offer orientations that you all can take a certificate we provide you and give it to your regional center. And people should put your name in the chat if you want me to call on you, if you've heard anything other. I actually, it's literally on my to-do list right now to ask DDS to approve this process, because people cannot be at the will of their regional centers, I mean, it's like ridiculous. So yeah, let me try to get an answer for you on that, Gladys, because I think, see, Sandra's saying you have to go to their orientation. I know that regional centers are saying that, but there's nothing in the law that states that's correct. I'm trying to give everybody a lesson as a person who has a master's in public policy that all of our rights in the world are based in law. Okay, so if you look at the self-determination law, it very specifically says participants must go through orientation. And then it says DDS must work with stakeholders to develop an orientation. That is literally all it says about orientation. It doesn't say that we have to go through it at our own regional center. There's no requirement there. So I want to try to get some clarification on that. I mean, honestly, I understand the advantage of going through it at your own regional center, because that way, because each of the 21 regional centers are doing it differently, which obviously I have really big problems with, but because that is the reality, it's best to know how your regional center is doing it. The problem with that is that some regional centers are not providing orientations. So, you're totally stuck if you belong to a regional center that is not providing orientations and is not being supportive to you. I want to go back in the chat because there was a question in Spanish that's from Gloria that says, has DDS approved orientations being done at other regional centers? Oh, it's the same question because some regional centers are announcing they are not approving it. So happy, Gloria, that we also asked that question.
Judy, while you're in the chat, there's another question that Lorna has translated for us from Manuel Rodriguez. If you transition to the SDP from the traditional system, do you continue working with the same coordinator?
So it depends on your regional center. During the phase-in period, there were a lot of people, a lot of regional centers created just a small group of service coordinators who work just in the self-determination program. I would hope that as we roll out statewide, that it would be all service coordinators must understand the self-determination program. I can tell you at my regional center, we got a new service coordinator, but now my service coordinator is being part of the training team to train all the service coordinators at our regional center to get them prepared. So that leads me to believe, at least at Westside Regional Center, you will not be changing to a new service coordinator. So, you know, I can't really say for every regional center what they're going to end up doing. What I would do is show up at your local advisory committee and ask that exact question and talk about whether that's going to be a problem for you or whatever the answer is. Okay. I'm looking that there are some questions about Disneyland. So Disneyland has, first of all, Disneyland doesn't have an annual pass right now. And if I were people, I would not be spending your hard-earned, you know, you're not earning it, but your limited funds to just buy a one-day ticket to go to Disneyland. I would hold off and wait for the annual passes, which will come out later this year. But I believe that the Disneyland annual pass should be allowed in a spending plan if in fact it is meeting the goals that you have laid out in the IPP and the person-centered plan. And if it's not meeting those goals, then write goals so that it does meet it. I mean, I don't think it's that hard, you know, but so here are the things. If the goals are socialization, community integration, then you better talk about the fact that you're going to Disneyland with a friend. You're going to Disneyland with other people who you're socializing with. Because if you're going by yourself or just with an aide and you're just riding the same ride over and over again, that to me, I agree that shouldn't be paid for. Self-determination funds are supposed to be meeting people's goals, and having fun, while it is laudable, it is not a goal that is generally put into somebody's individual program plan. The goals in IPPs are much more specific, like pre-employment, socialization skills, behavior management. They're all, you know, they're all these code words. And we in the self-determination program need to learn how to use these code words to get us what we need to meet our best lives or the lives of our children and our family members. And so, you know, I think it's super important that you understand why goals, the goal setting piece of your person-centered planning process is so critically important, because then if you finish out your year and you can show how self-determination helped you meet these goals, it's going to be great for the future of the self-determination program. Because I can tell you that my son, in his 24 years of getting regional center services in the traditional system, never met any of his IPP goals, ever. He never met any of his school IEP goals either, by the way. And so it's because the goals were not meaningful to him. So we now have goals that are actually meaningful to him that he is meeting. And so, so that's why you have to have good person-centered plans. It's the complete critical piece of this. All right, let's see here. Are there any other questions before we move on? I don't know if Oh, Christina, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question. So some service providers that have been providing service under the traditional service, under the traditional system, are now doing person-centered plans. And I'm wondering if the consumer then can continue to take or receive services from that service provider if they're doing PCPs now, can they continue on to be part of that program once they switch over to SDP, or is that a conflict of interest?
I don't think that's been decided yet, or I am not sure. Do other people, Talene, have you heard anything about that? Yeah, I am not sure yet. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered here. And I'm not sure yet. Have you heard anything?
Well, it's a little confusing because they're saying they're not IFs, but an IF is usually provides a PCP, right? So, but you don't need to have an IF to have a PCP. So there's this gray area, and I just want to.
I think it's a gray area too. The reason why we made it an independent facilitator when we wrote the law was that we didn't want there to be that conflict of interest. So I would certainly hope that would not be the case, but I don't see it in the law as being a problem. First of all, this person-centered planning funding is not in the self-determination law. It is something that DDS made available after the fact. And in the budget that we hope will come out, in the budget that we know will come out on Friday, we hope that there will be this direction in there. I don't know that they're actually putting any, we'll look at the language. We're going to know, because if there is nothing that says there's a conflict, then there isn't a conflict. So we'll see what they say on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I am not seeing other hands up. Can I ask if Vivian has joined us? Vivian Han, are you on yet?
I am not seeing Vivian in the participant list, but I do have a question from Kidada that just came in. Where are we with the legislation regarding appointment with an SDP ombudsman or ombudsperson?
Well, that's a very good question. So the legislation has passed through 2 committees in the Senate. That doesn't mean it's anywhere close to being law. It is going to be having a hearing on the 17th in the Appropriations Committee, where we anticipate it will be held there in something called suspense. It's a weird legal term, but basically what it means is there's a cost to this bill, and therefore you need to work it out in the budget process. And so there are features of our bill that we would like to have changed. For example, in the way that the bill is currently written, the ombudsperson says that they're supposed to be independent and autonomous, but in fact, there's nothing in the bill that specifies how that works. And so for us, it's very important that they provide oversight, not just of the self-determination program at the regional center level, but also make recommendations to the state legislature on how DDS is doing with the self-determination program too. But if DDS is hiring that ombudsperson and they have authority for all reports that the ombudsperson writes, then we don't believe that they're truly independent. So right now we're really advocating for sort of a separate, really separate entity as much as possible to hold this, and we'll see how we do. Honestly, it's been a little bit of an uphill battle because we know it's likely that DDS won't support anything that's completely independent. So this is where the first bill goes in, and then all the backroom negotiations begin. And so we're still in the backroom negotiation pieces, and we could potentially be in that for months. everybody. So we will keep you posted on how it's going. We also, by the way, are going to know a lot more on Friday, because some of the pieces that we would also like to add to our bill may end up being in the state budget or this TDS plan to implement the program. So if that's the case, then our bill may become more narrow and just be about the ombudsperson. So this next week is very critical. I would say that the next week is more important about the self-determination program than it has been since the law passed. So for me, it's all hands on deck on self-determination for the next week. And I'm basically spending a lot of my time focusing on it. So what's going to happen with the budget? Because it's all about what's in law, all about what's in law. Other questions before we move on? I was really, Vivian was supposed to join us. Let me look at my texts. She hasn't answered me. Because I want, so the theme for this, which we don't have more than a half an hour, but I'm more than happy to answer questions and have discussions with everybody. And that to me makes it very happy. But I wanted us to talk about the truth about the self-determination program and really hear stories from a few folks that are attempting, to make it successful for them. So I'm gonna, since Vivian hasn't joined yet, I'm going to tell her story for her. So Vivian Han is on the board of directors of Disability Voices United. She is also a senior attorney at Disability Rights California, working on the self-determination program, among other things. And she's also, first and foremost, she's a sister, she has a brother who has autism, who is served by a regional center and is in the self-determination program. And she just had her meeting with the regional center for the second year for her brother. And so it should have been a pretty straightforward meeting, right? With her regional center. And she is about as much of an expert on the SDP as anybody can be. She does litigation around it. She writes legislation around it. She serves on our board. She has trained people on it. She's an expert on self-determination. She knows her brother's rights. However, at the IPP for her brother, she was just a sister. She had her brother's independent facilitator at the meeting, and there was a certain point where they were talking about emotional things where it was very hard for her. She knows her parents are getting older. It's hard. The family needs to figure out, how to support her brother. And she, at that moment, could only be a sister. She could not be anything else but a sister. And so the truth that she wanted to provide to all of us today was that no matter what kind of expert you are as a person, in this field, when you go into the IPP, if you're a mom or a dad, or you are a brother or a sister, or a self-advocate, it is really important for you to have somebody there to support you. Whether it's an independent facilitator, or it's a friend, or a colleague, or whatever, who's there, who doesn't have that like emotional attachment to the individual, it is really important for you to have somebody there with you, unless you're going into a meeting where you are, the budget meeting is very simple, you're not asking for any additional funds, and everything's pretty straightforward in your spending plan. I think it's really important to have somebody with you to support you there and keep you focused and keep you on task. So that was sort of the truth that she was going to tell in a much better more emotional and longer way. But it was a story that she told at a training that she and I were doing last week, which happened to be the day of her brother's IPP. And I said, you got to tell that to folks at our meeting, at our SDP Connect. So, you know, I wanted to give a chance. I mean, there are many truths that I have seen with my son in the SDP that I can tell as well from a parent perspective. But, you know, if you have, any of you been in the program or are serving people in the program, helping people, you know, please raise your hand if you want to tell some truths so people understand it. But I'll tell you a truth for my son. So for my son, he's similar to this, somebody who was talking earlier, is my son can't always express exactly what his wishes are for his life. He has had so limited choices. He has had very few choices in his life, few choices in school, few choices in the community. And he really needs maximum support to help him think through what his life is. And so one of the truths that I can say as a parent is that sometimes we have to step back as parents and say, this may be something that I'm wanting for him as opposed to something he wants for himself. And that for my son is happening around employment. So my son needs maximum support for pre-employment things. And I'm really trying to push him to get a job, even if it's a non-paying job initially. And, you know, I'm pushing him into things he may not want to do. And therefore he becomes very negative about it. And so for me, it's really important that instead of me doing the pushing, that we bring in experts who understand what it means to find people who need a lot of support in employment, who help them, you know, figure out what it is that works for them and figure out what it is that can help them move forward in their lives. And so that's where I've had to step back and say, okay, I'm his mom. I have all these dreams about him, which are not necessarily his dreams. They're my dreams, not his dreams. And so, you know, we've put in Josh's spending plan, a couple of folks who have helped people get employment for 30 years, and who are going to really do it, you know, help my son think about his dreams and hopes in his life. The other thing we're doing is helping him, you know, he's always gotten kind of what he wanted in life. He doesn't actually want a lot. He doesn't ask for purchases very much. Mostly the things he wants is to go places, like to go to the library, which is free, and to check out books, which is free. But we're trying to attach working with the things that he wants in his life. And so another truth that I was going to share is that don't put everything the person wants in their life in their spending plan, because maybe what should be in their spending plan is pre-employment skills, and they earn the monies to be able to purchase those things that they want in their life. And you have to think about that as a connection. So, you know, maybe they desperately want that Disneyland pass. So we have not put my son's Disneyland pass. Well, there are no Disneyland passes, but we don't have that as a line item. And the reason we don't have that as a line item is because we put employment as a goal, and that he will earn enough money to buy his own Disneyland pass, which is the thing that's the most important thing in his life. Disneyland is the thing he loves most. And so I would rather him buy it himself and feel very proud of himself to do it. Honestly, it's not going to take that long, especially if he's lucky he lives at home and he doesn't have to support himself. So all of his money can go to buying that pass. This is such a good time to do that, by the way, because there are no passes likely until the end of the year. So now's a good time for him to start earning it. And some of that is going to be earned by doing chores around the house, and other it's going to be earned to have small jobs in certain places. So those are kind of the truths that I wanted to say, is that you don't have to put everything in the spending plan. The last thing that I should probably say, which is which is not about us, but it's something that I think is really important for everybody to hear is that, you know, one of the 5 principles of self-determination is responsibility. And we are always fighting for the other 4, the freedom, the authority, the confirmation, the support piece. But we have got to recognize that that responsibility is on us. And that means that you cannot look at self-determination as a way to buy everything in the universe that you might want. Some, particularly those who have children who have behavior therapy as part of your budgets are quite large. Your budgets are larger than my son's. I know the average size of budgets because I get this data from DDS. And I know, my son is 24 years old, is an adult who needs 24/7 care. And his budget is smaller than many children's budgets who are in school most of the day, who are young and should absolutely be supported by their family members. Because if they didn't have a disability, they'd be supported by their family members at this age. And so your budgets are enormous. And it is your responsibility as people who support the idea of self-determination that you don't have to spend your whole budget. It's really okay if you don't spend your budget, because you know what that does? That means that self-determination will last forever. We are seeing this is the truth about self-determination. We are seeing ballooning and massive budgets for a whole lot of people. Mostly for white people, let me say. There is, unfortunately, a continuation of racial and ethnic disparities, although they are much smaller in self-determination than they are in the traditional system. So hooray for self-determination, but they still exist, particularly, well, they even out. Whereas Latinos are much more profoundly affected in the traditional system, they are now about equal in their disparities to other ethnicities. So all ethnicities, all non-white ethnicities suffer. So it is really important that you don't overreach in your spending plan. I've been hearing rumors about people spending things to an extreme, and it really concerns me, folks. We have got to, I'm saying this on the SDP Connect and not in the greater world. But it is really concerning when you hear some of the stuff that people are trying to do, which could endanger the entire self-determination program. I'm not going to give the examples here, but remember that these are public monies. These are taxpayer dollars that we are spending. And if the legislature hears of some of these things that people want to spend money on, our whole program could die. So this is not a chance to improve your home, to improve, the entire family's, health. And this is just about that individual with the disability. Okay. And so please be responsible with the way you're developing your spending plans so that when we move forward into the statewide system, that we'll be able to point to things to say, look at how people's lives have been improved. So that I was going to say that at our conference, and I decided that it was just not the right place to have that honest conversation with 1,400 people listening, and it's a little bit easier with just 78 of you. But I'm interested in hearing what people think about that, and if other people have views, I don't want to point fingers at anybody because these are individualized. It's person-centered. And so what works for one person may not work for another, but you should not be comparing your spending plans with other people. Oh, wait, you bought that? I'm going to buy that too. How did you get that? It's like, that's not what we do. There's not some list that you should be checking off. This is to have a person-centered plan. What is it you need in your life to make your life better? I'm going to tell you something that's going to be in my son's person-centered plan right now. I don't want anybody to copy me because this is about my son and not your son. We're putting in a spending plan, a new toilet. I know that seems ridiculous, but my son is constantly stuffing up the toilet, and it has become an enormous expense for us to have, plumbers come in. And so we're getting an industrial strength toilet put in his bathroom so that we don't have to spend all this other money. It's a one-time expense. It's not actually a lot of money, by the way, but that is something that we're going to put in his spending plan for this year because it is a personal way to improve his quality of life so that he is not having to worry about his toileting. So it's like, I know that that's an issue that lots of people with disabilities have, is that they're unable to reach back and flush all the time or whatever it is. It's like, I don't want to reveal or condemn him for this. We're going to accommodate him. And the way to accommodate him is to get him a toilet that doesn't get stuck all the time instead of trying to fix him. So this is an example of something that is for my son and for my son only. So I don't want all of you to run out and do that same thing. So stop comparing each other's spending plans. Stop comparing what other people are doing. Think individual about your own self. What is it that you want in your life, or your loved one wants in their life to meet their life goals? And remember, those goals are not about having fun, even though we should all have fun. These life goals are things that are appropriate for an IPP. It's very specific in the law that all the expenditures have to meet the goals in the IPP, not in the person-centered plan, but in the IPP. Of course, it would be good to have most of the goals in the PCP match the IPP. There could be additional goals in the PCP. There might be educational goals that you're not asking for money for. There could be, like fun goals in there that don't end up in the IPP. But the goals that go in the IPP are generally related to people's health and safety, people's living in the community, working in the community, and socialization stuff. Okay. All right. So Debbie and Jeff. Oops, I just muted you accidentally. Go ahead.
Am I there? Yeah.
Yes.
Jeff just had to go to the bathroom, so it's me. So my question, we're just entering. I wanted Zach, my son Zach, who's 34, autism, to be part of the pilot, didn't get selected. We've been staying in touch with it the whole time. But when you start talking about IPP at this point, where in the process of getting onto self-determination? So you get a person-centered plan, you work with an independent facilitator, you got the budget, you're moving towards a spending plan. Where in that process do you get back to the IPP and morph whatever needs to get morphed in that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's done differently at each regional center. And remember that you have a right to ask for an IPP at any time for any reason, okay? So this is the way we did it. And remember that IPPs are not equal to meetings. Like you can have a meeting that is not the same thing as your IPP meeting. So we had a meeting to discuss our budget. So that was just a meeting to discuss what is going to be in his individual budget. We had an agreement and then his budget was certified. So that was just a meeting. Then we had a separate meeting to discuss what was in the spending plan. There was literally just one question asked by our regional center about one particular line item. We adjusted something. Remember, our regional center does not approve the spending plan, but they are allowed to ask questions. And so they asked a question, is this truly integrated in the community? Remember, you can't have any segregated programs. We made an adjustment there, and then the spending plan went into a conversation at the IPP. So then what happened at the IPP is we set IPP goals, and which were, by the way, completely aligned with the person-centered plan. And we then attached the person-centered plan and the spending plan to the IPP, and we were done. And that brought us in. So it was actually 3 separate meetings. They were all during the pandemic, so there wasn't a lot of travel involved. I really believe that this new life of having Zoom meetings is going to remain even after the pandemic ends. So the first meeting about the budget actually was in person. It was right before the pandemic, it was January. And then the second meeting was about the spending plan, which was in March or April, and that was by Zoom. And then the IPP was also by Zoom. So it was very easy, very fast, actually.
So all of those meetings that you had, whether it was the budget or the spending plan, or then a final meeting for everything at the end for the IPP, they were all parts of really the IPP process in a way. Yeah, okay.
They really were.
Yeah.
And for us, for our son's person-centered plan, we had his service coordinator at his person-centered plan, but we then, she then got promoted, so we ended up having a different service coordinator who was not at his person-centered plan. So we needed to also have that conversation about what was in his plan at his IVP, since he wasn't part of it. And so that's all fine too. I mean, your IPP should be where you bring in your person-centered planner, or if you feel confident you can do it on your own, to present your person-centered plan. Here are the goals that we came up with, because remember, your person-centered plan makes your case for your spending plan and potentially makes the case for any unmet need as well. So you want to have a really solid person-centered plan. Let me tell you, a solid person-centered plan doesn't have to be beautiful. I've seen person-centered, well, my son had a person-centered plan that was a Disneyland map that was so beautiful. This is way before self-determination. And it was like so gorgeous. It had Tomorrowland, and it had Adventureland, and it had Frontierland, and it was so great. And not a single goal got implemented, not one. It was just this beautiful document. So a person-centered plan now, for us, is just literally typed. There's no photos, there's nothing, just a typed list of words. But with every goal, it has who are the people responsible to do it? What is the timing that we're going to meet these goals? Who are the kinds of people that are going to help us brainstorm about what is the future? So that's the most important thing, is the accountability piece that's based in your person-centered plan.
So it sounds like to me, which I've thought all along, it is so critical who you are having help you do that person-centered plan. To me, if you haven't got a good person-centered plan, you're kind of chopped your foot off right there.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And please, parents, do not think you can write your own kid's person-centered plan. I wrote the self-determination law. I still didn't write my son's person-centered plan. It was written by an outside person who gave me my son's perspective on this, not my own perspective. So
and to me, that person, whoever that is, they've got to really have the background to do that.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Sandra's saying in the chat that she's an independent facilitator and she didn't write her own songs.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have an outsider give that perspective. Thank you, Debbie. That was great questions.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Christina.
I just wanted to just respond to what you mentioned before, which is really, really important in terms of the spending plan and the money, and asking other people what there's, what's included. I think part of it comes from a lack of knowledge, a lack of not knowing, never being able to be in a position where you can have, you can say what your hopes and dreams are, and be able to have, potentially have that fulfilled, or steps to make that fulfilled. And so I think when people are asking, in some regards, asking, what can this be included, can that be included, it's really learning what kind of things can be included. And so but I really appreciate this perspective that you brought, and the importance. And one thing I also am thinking of, what you touched on, which is super, super important, is having from a white Caucasian middle-class family having a certain budget, and then somebody from the black or brown community not having the same budget, but having very similar needs. In that realm, I want to figure out how we can ensure that the communities that are underrepresented are getting the support, are getting the person-centered plans, are getting the spending plans that they deserve, like based on the needs that they have. And, I don't know, what you would suggest. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk, but I still know that there's, those communities are, they're dropping out of the program and are really struggling. And any suggestions you have on ensuring how we can get them the support that they need to be, receiving the same rights.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've done at DVU is we've trained hundreds of independent facilitators who speak languages other than English to ensure that people have access to person-centered planners and independent facilitators from their own communities who can speak to them in the language that they prefer. So we have trained hundreds of people. So that's critical. The next thing is that, this is a new program and we just need to get people experienced in it. And it's just people are going to be making mistakes. And so we just have to really get, and one of the reasons we ensure that we interpret this meeting in Spanish is to ensure that the Spanish speaking community gets the same level of information as the English speaking community. And that's been very, very important. So, and then speaking of Spanish, I believe we might be losing our interpreter in 2 minutes. And so I want to just make sure, I'm going to go with the last comment, Hugo, and then we're going to have to close off because I want to make sure that we still have interpretation. So go ahead, Hugo. Hugo, can you unmute? Go ahead, Hugo.
Hugo, you may need to select what language channel you're speaking in. You may need to select at the bottom of your screen the English channel. Right now, we can't hear you.
Thank you for figuring that one out because I would not know what to do.
Hugo, is it possible for you to type it in the chat? We're not hearing what you're saying, unfortunately.
So, and we're going to have to knock off pretty soon. Somebody was asking where we can get the recording of this. All of our recordings are on our self-determination interchange. If you just go to theinterchange.org, which is in the chat, you will be able to find all the information, all the previous, I think we've done 25, 27 of these. You will be able to find all of these in the past, and you will be able to find tons of other information about the self-determination program. We also have a forum where you can connect with each other. So I want to thank everybody for this really good SVP Connect. Usually we do it every other week, but Hugo, you're there. Okay, real quick, Hugo.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So sorry, I joined kind of late, but I'm not sure if you were taking like Q&A on this, but I had a really quick question. Just kind of a recommendation, I guess, from the group or from yourself. We're in this precarious situation where we're at the yearly IPP and we're trying to close it out. We've been at it for like 4 or 5 months. We're in a Mexican standoff, basically trying to add services that we feel are appropriate. So now we've gotten an NOA, for the rejection of the services. So that's where we're at. We've escalated it. The collaborative has been helping us out. So Elizabeth's groups have been very helpful. But now that this new thing's going to kick in, and now about this person-centered plan, and it sounds like we need to develop that very clearly as well, and hopefully it jives with the other thing. Like in our case, like what would the suggestion be? Like what should the tactic be now? Because we're kind of in the middle of the IPP and us arguing about additional services, and then we're going to come in with a personal plan saying, hey, we need all these services. So like, how's that going to work out?
Absolutely. right now is a good time to start identifying a person to help you with your person-centered plan. You need to have, remember, a person-centered plan is a party with a purpose. So you want to be surrounded by all the people that your child knows and loves and trusts in the world, to be able to brainstorm together about what the needs are and about what the hopes and dreams are. It's really important to identify those needs in that person-centered plan, which will help justify your asking for these additional services in the traditional system, which will then move into the budget for the self-determination program. So that's why it's really critical to have that excellent person-centered plan. So that would be your next step. You also need to apply for fair hearing for the services that were turned down for you, for your child. So, I mean, you want to have two sort of processes going on simultaneously, and make sure when you go into the fair hearing that you bring support. I know that a lawyer is too expensive, but to definitely have support. And I know the ICC is working with some folks to try to help get that support at fair hearings. So I hope that helped. We have to go because we promised to leave at 6 o'clock with our interpreter. I want to thank everybody. We usually do every other week. SDB Connect, there's a chance we're going to do one next week though. Heads up to Ed and Lorna, if in fact there's some really critical things that we need to discuss in the budget, because that process moves so quickly that if we wait 2 weeks, it might be too late. So we'll keep you all informed. Make sure you're on our email list so that you find out about our plans for next week. Thank you, everybody, and have a really, really wonderful evening. Take care all. Bye-bye.